So the things we'll be discussing today are laws of UX, the definition, some laws of UX with illustrations that will help you understand, and real life examples. We'll also be talking about usability heuristics, some usability heuristics, and then a couple of resources so that you can read on your own and after the session, and then we'll have time for questions. So first of all, what are laws of UX? Laws of UX is a collection of best practice that designers can consider when building user interfaces. Designers can use this knowledge to build more human-centered products and experiences instead of forcing users to adapt to the design of a product or experience. We can use some key principles from psychology as a guide for designing in a way that is adapted to people rather. So when you're designing a product, whatever it is that you're designing, right? People are used to certain things. People have been using other products before you launched your own product, and then they are used to these things. So you reinventing the wheel will basically give users terrible experience. And your main goal as a designer, as a UI UX designer, as a product designer, is that people should be able to achieve and accomplish their goals easily, period. That is your work as a product designer. So don't hinder people's accomplishing their goal by creating your own mental models. Don't do that. Don't reinvent wheels, right? They will basically allow people have terrible experience while using your products. So I'm going to be explaining some laws of UX. There are a couple of them. I think there are 19 or 20, but because of time, we'll be going through just 7, right? And then, I'll give you where you guys would go and read more about the laws of UX. So the first law is Jacob's law, right? And Jacob's law states that users spend most of their time on other sites. This means that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites that they already know, right? So for instance, if I want to shop for a product, I have a bunch of places to go. I have Amazon, I have AliExpress, I have Jumia, I have Konga. If I go to Konga and Konga is acting up, I will go to Jumia. If Jumia is acting up, I'll go to AliExpress. So there are a lot of options, right? So while you're being unique, while you're being creative with your designs and solutions, remember that users are familiar with specific mental models. In our heads, we already know how e-commerce sites should look like, right? There should be a bunch of options for me to choose from. There should be a bunch of pictures, there should be comments, there should be ratings from people, right? And if you want to reinvent the wheel, right? Maybe you want to be very creative and make sure you test. Make sure you do a bit of user testing before pushing your product to the public, right? So when you're doing the user testing, make sure that you monitor how users are using your product. If you see that the thing that you have reinvented makes the user not accomplish their goal, please remove it, because the main purpose of you creating that product is for people to accomplish their goal. So if whatever you reinvented or whatever extreme creativity that you have has made the user not accomplish their goal, kindly remove it, right? In this picture here, you can notice how both products have similar patterns, right? They have detailed descriptions, they have the price, they have discounts, they have purchase option, and they have a save for later option. They basically look the same. So me going from Jumia to Konga, it is the same thing. I don't have to now learn how Konga works or learn how Jumia works, because they are all designed similarly, right? So the next law is Hicks' law. Hicks' law states that the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices, right? When you're designing, make sure you break down complex tasks into smaller steps in order to decrease cognitive load. Avoid overwhelming your users by highlighting recommended options. Be careful not to simplify to the point of abstraction. Minimize choices when response times are critical to increase decision time. So for instance, you go to a restaurant and then they hand you the menu.
from Eurosat. I will not know. Everything will be exposed.
So imagine you go to a restaurant and then they hand you a menu, and then your menu is 15 pages, right? Trust me, in 2 hours, you've not picked the food you want to pick, right? And even when you now want to now decide after you've taken a lot of time, what you eventually pick will be rice or normal pasta that you usually eat, because there's a lot of options to choose from, right? A company or a product that handles it so well is Netflix for me. Personally, anytime I want to eat something, whatever it is I want to eat, even if it's biscuits, I want to watch something while eating that thing. And then I use Netflix, so I'll just go to Netflix. So imagine I want to eat one biscuit, yeah, and then I go to Netflix and then I see a bunch of films and I do not know which to pick. So for this first screen, you can see that a bunch of movies here, and then I'm like, which one should I pick? I'm lost. But then Netflix handled this perfectly, right? They created recommendations. You can see here that it says top 10 films in Nigeria today. Instead of looking for a couple of movies out of 1,000 movies that are on Netflix, they already highlighted the number one. And I'm like, okay, if people are watching this movie, it has to be good. And then I just pick it. So instead of me going through all of those steps and looking for movies, I could just pick number one because they've recommended it for me, right? So I'm making decisions in less time. Also, when you use Netflix regularly, they have this algorithm thing, I think it's AI, right? That gives you movies according to other movies that you have watched. I love sci-fi movies. I love futuristic movies. And Netflix knows that. They understand that. That's why this picture right here shows a 92%. And trust me, anytime I have watched a movie that is 90% upward, it is a movie that I like. So they have helped me streamline, instead of searching for a lot of movies, they've streamlined my options in 2 different ways, right? Also, remember that I mentioned something. I said, be careful not to simplify to the point of abstraction. Let's take a look at what Apple did here, right? This remote is like typical remotes that all of us have in our houses. And then some buttons, let's not lie, you've never ever touched it before because you don't even know what it is used for, right? So Apple decided to, be the good guys. Oh yeah, let's simplify this thing. And then they created this remote control in the middle. Trust me, seeing this remote control, I do not know what to do. They have confused me more. I will just continue clicking on this, pressing these buttons, and I will be hoping that it takes me where I want it to take me. They have simplified to the point of abstraction, and they have confused me more. But see this other control here. This control has reduced the button by about 20. I think I counted it. They reduced the buttons here to about like less than 20. And then I can still do basic functionalities that I want to do. I can increase my volume. I can reduce my volume. I can put in a channel number, and they have simplified it. Apple did not do that well, but this other remote control did that perfectly. Another law of UX is Miller's law. People can't store a lot of items in their working memory, so make it easier for them to process and scan through items. A recent study showed that our attention span as human beings is 7 to 10 seconds, and that of a goldfish is about 15 seconds. So a goldfish pays more attention than us humans, right? You need to consider that while designing. Organize content in smaller chunks to help users process, understand, and memorize items. That's where this word chunking comes in, right? What is chunking? Chunking is grouping together connected things so that they can be processed as one, right? So I have a couple of examples here. For those of us that listen to the radio, whenever they are calling the number for, to call in, they don't just say the number, 081, blah, blah, blah. They don't just say it like that because they know that you are not going to get it, obviously. So what they do is they do 081 357 all of those things. They break it into chunks so that you can grab it better and faster. Another example is Google Docs, right? So imagine if all of these things that are placed here, Google Docs puts it to your eyes, and then you go to the Google Docs and then you're seeing a bunch of things and you don't know where to start from. It would confuse you as a user. You're definitely going to leave Google Docs, trust me. But what have they done? They have chunked, they have reduced it into smaller bits, and they have grouped it in similar ways for me to understand. So see this chunk of text right here. The one on the left is packed. I cannot see it, I cannot read it, I do not know what is here. But the one on the right-hand side is broken down. I can easily scan through it, and I can easily understand. So while designing, make sure you do not overwhelm the user, because human beings don't have long attention span. Make sure you break whatever you want to show the user into chunks. The next law we'll be talking about is Fitts law. Fitts law states that the time to acquire a target is a function of the distance to and size of the target. That sounds like physics, but let me break it down to you, right? Here, the only thing you should pay attention to as a user is how long will it take, as a designer, is how long will it take my user to accomplish their goal, basically. Touch targets should be large enough for users to accurately select them. Touch targets should be placed in areas of an interface that allows them to be easily acquired. I would use Apple as another example of a product that we see regularly. For those of us that use iPhones and all, there's this small switch by the side of your iPhone that allows you to switch like your ringer mode on or off. That thing is the smallest thing ever. And anytime I want to use it, I basically have to remove my pouch to do that. It's taking me more time. It's making the process is more stressful, or I have to look for a pen to be able to switch it, right? That thing is small, and the touch target is very, very small for me to touch, like with my thumb, right? So Apple has basically made that very, very uncomfortable for me. So as designers, make sure you consider that. This on illustration shows how the thumb zone, right? So when you're using your phone, this is how convenient parts of your screens are, right? The green parts are the natural parts which are comfortable to reach. You can touch your phone right now and touch the green parts of your phone, right? You see that those parts are easy to touch. The orange parts, you have to stretch a bit. You have to stretch your thumb a bit. The red parts, you have to stretch like very well to be able to touch those things on those places, right? That's why most times when you see apps, the navigation bar is always below. The home screen is always to the left, because that is very, very easy to click. Yes, this is a perfect example, right? So the middle part is the primary part. The main content is here, and it is easier for you to, reach as a user. When you're scrolling, you know that most times when you're scrolling on social media feeds, you swipe on the middle, at the middle of your phone, right? So information, most times when you're designing, put information there so that it's easier for users to, interact with the information that is there. Then we have the secondary parts, tabs and other secondary actions that may be frequent. Keep the most used one on the left and the least used one on the right. That is why home button is always on the left. There's a reason for everything in design. So that's why the home button is always at the left hand side of the navigation bar. And then the tertiary part, actions people rarely use, menus, profiles, We can also trigger them by swiping gestures and swiping the app left or right, right? So for those of us that use Twitter, there's this, your profile picture is on the upper left, upper left-hand side, right? It is hard for you to just click on that, but you can easily just swipe your screen to the other side and then it takes you there. Those are just things that will help your usability. The next thing is, for cars, right? On some of our cars, you can see that from your steering wheel, you can control some things. You can control the music, you can, for some cars, you can control the AC, I think. So you can control the music, you can stop the music, you can pick a call. That's maybe if your car can connect to Bluetooth and all of that, you can pick a call right from the steering wheel. They make life easier for you. So imagine you didn't have all of those buttons, and then sometimes when you are driving, you need to see very well. So you turn down the volume of the music, right? Instead of you stretching and maybe you close your eyes and then the car hits you and all of that, it is on your steering wheel. So you can easily just touch it and reduce the volume. That explains Fitts law very well. Another law is aesthetic usability effect. Users often perceive aesthetically pleasing designs as designs that are more usable. We actually, as humans, we actually judge a book by its cover. Let's not lie. If I go into a store and I see a purple thing, I will pick it because I love purple and purple is my favorite color and it is aesthetically pleasing to me. I'm basically judging a book by its cover. Another perfect example is there's this Freshio that has a purple flavor. I do not even take Freshio before, but because I saw it and it's purple and purple is aesthetically pleasing to my eyes, I bought it and I don't even like it. But because it's aesthetically pleasing, right? I bought it, right? So some people say your experience just has to be nice, your app doesn't have to be fine. That's not true. Your app being fine attracts people. When you go to a website and it's not fine, let us say the truth. You are going to be frustrated because you're like, what is this? And then there is a platform or there's a website that looks perfect, that looks nice. You want to use that website rather than using one that doesn't look good, right? And aesthetically pleasing design creates a positive response in people's brains and leads them to believe the design actually works better. So even if your experience is not too good, because it is fine, people would download it. People would go to your website before even considering the experience of the website.